John's world shattered on what was supposed to be his daughter's perfect birthday. As the sun shone brightly, filling their backyard with laughter and joy, John noticed a stranger, Mark, at the refreshment table, who seemed oddly out of place. Initially dismissing him as a parent of one of Emma's friends, John soon couldn't ignore the unsettling interactions between Mark and his wife Sarah. Their discreet glances and whispered conversations gnawed at him. The tipping point came when John overheard Mark saying, "He deserves to know," and Sarah pleading, "Not today, Mark. I can't ruin Emma's birthday." Confronting Sarah, John was hit with the painful truth. She had been having an affair and had invited her lover to their daughter's birthday party. Struggling to maintain his composure for Emma's sake, John endured the rest of the party with a forced smile. When the guests left, the confrontation erupted, revealing months of deceit and betrayal. Despite the anguish, John and Sarah resolved to face the issues for Emma's well-being, choosing to undergo therapy to rebuild their fractured relationship. The journey ahead was fraught with pain and uncertainty, but their commitment to Emma's happiness gave them the strength to try and heal. However, as the party progressed, John began to notice subtle but unsettling signs. Sarah seemed to be unusually attentive to the man by the refreshment table. Their interactions were brief and discreet, but John's instincts told him something was off. He saw them exchange glances and caught snippets of their hushed conversations. A knot of unease started to form in his stomach, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the festivities and reminding himself that today was about Emma. The nagging feeling of suspicion, however, was hard to ignore, and it lingered in the back of his mind as the party continued. As the party went on, John couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was wrong. His attention kept drifting back to Sarah and the mysterious man, whose name he still didn't know. He watched as they shared furtive glances and seemed to gravitate towards each other in a way that was anything but casual. Sarah's demeanor around the man was different. There was an intimacy in her body language that John couldn't ignore. She would laugh a bit too freely, her hand lingering on the man's arm longer than seemed appropriate for acquaintances. The knot in John's stomach tightened. He found himself hyper-aware of their interactions, each small gesture feeding his growing suspicion. He saw Sarah and the man step away from the main party area, whispering in a corner. The man's hand brushed Sarah's cheek, and she didn't pull away. John's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. Could it be that Sarah was having an affair? The thought was almost too painful to entertain. John's mind raced, replaying the past few months in his head. He thought about Sarah's late nights at work, her sudden need for privacy, and the way she had been emotionally distant. Had he missed the signs? The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He might have been so focused on making everything perfect for Emma that he overlooked the cracks forming in his marriage. Determined to keep the party running smoothly for Emma's sake, John forced himself to smile and interact with the guests. He laughed at the magician's tricks, helped children with the games, and took pictures of Emma blowing out her birthday candles. But every time he glanced in Sarah's direction, his smile faltered. He could see the way she was drawn to the man, the way their eyes met with an intensity that spoke volumes. The weight of his suspicions bore down on him, but he pushed them aside, focusing on Emma's happiness. Yet, the tension was palpable, and it was only a matter of time before something gave way. John knew he couldn't let this continue without addressing it, but he had to choose the right moment, one that wouldn't ruin Emma's special day. The party, which was supposed to be a joyous celebration, had become a battleground of secrets and lies, and John found himself caught in the middle, struggling to keep up appearances while his world threatened to crumble around him. As the party continued, John's unease grew unbearable. He couldn't ignore the evidence right in front of him. Sarah's secretive glances, the whispers, the intimate touches. The final straw came when he saw Sarah and the man slip away from the party once more, heading toward the side of the house where they thought they wouldn't be seen. John's heart raced as he decided to follow them, needing to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. He approached quietly, careful not to draw attention to himself. As he rounded the corner, he saw Sarah and the man standing close together, their heads bowed in conversation. John's breath caught in his throat as he heard snippets of their exchange. "I can't keep doing this, Sarah," the man said softly. "He deserves to know." Sarah's voice trembled as she replied, "I know, Mark, but today isn't the right time. I can't ruin Emma's birthday." John's world shattered in that moment. The betrayal was undeniable. His wife was having an affair, and she had invited her lover to their daughter's birthday party. Anger and hurt surged through him, but he knew he couldn't cause a scene here, not with Emma and all the guests around. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself, and then stepped forward. "Sarah, can I talk to you for a moment?" John's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that made Sarah's eyes widen in fear. Mark took a step back, looking guilty and uncomfortable. "I should go," he muttered, avoiding John's gaze. Sarah nodded, her face pale. "Please, Mark, we'll talk later." Once Mark had left, John turned to Sarah, his eyes burning with betrayal and anger. "How could you?" he demanded, his voice low but fierce. "How could you bring him here, to our daughter's birthday party?" Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "John, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." John clenched his fists, trying to keep his emotions in check. "How long has this—" Hello, my friends. This is Narrative Stories channel. Let's start this story. John woke up early, with a sense of purpose and excitement. Today was his daughter Emma's 7th birthday, and he was determined to make it a memorable celebration. John had been planning the party for weeks, meticulously organizing every detail to ensure it would be perfect. He envisioned a day filled with laughter, games, and joy. A day Emma would cherish forever. The decorations were ready, the cake was ordered, and the invitations had been sent out to all of Emma's friends and family. John's wife Sarah seemed equally enthusiastic about the preparations. She had taken charge of the guest list and helped with the decorations, adding her creative touch to make the party extra special. Sarah and John had always been a team when it came to Emma, and today was no different. Emma, with her bright eyes and infectious smile, was eagerly anticipating her birthday party. She had talked about it nonstop for the past few days, and her excitement was palpable. John couldn't wait to see the look on her face when she saw the backyard transformed into a whimsical wonderland. As they worked together to set up the final touches, John felt a sense of contentment. Despite the usual ups and downs of marriage, moments like these reminded him of the strong bond they shared as a family. He watched as Sarah hung up colorful streamers and balloons, and he couldn't help but smile. Everything was falling into place, and he was confident that today would be perfect. Little did John know, the day would take a turn that he could never have anticipated. The carefully crafted plans and the joy of the celebration would soon be overshadowed by a revelation that would shake the very foundation of their family. The sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the backyard as guests began to arrive. Laughter and chatter filled the air as children ran around, their faces painted with excitement. John greeted each guest with a smile, grateful for the presence of friends and family who had come to celebrate Emma's special day. The backyard was a scene of delight, with a bounce house, a candy table, and a magician ready to perform tricks that would mesmerize the children. Emma, dressed in her favorite princess dress, was the star of the day, her joy radiating through every smile and giggle. As John mingled with the guests, he noticed a man standing by the refreshment table, looking slightly out of place. He didn't recognize the man, but assumed he was a parent of one of Emma's friends from school. John made a mental note to introduce himself later, not giving it much thought at the moment. There were more pressing matters at hand, like making sure the cake was brought out at the right time, and that all the games went off without a hitch. Sarah seemed to be in her element, chatting animatedly with guests and ensuring everyone was having a good time. She moved effortlessly through the crowd, her laughter and cheerfulness adding to the festive atmosphere. John admired her ability to host and entertain, feeling a pang of pride as he watched her. Emma's happiness was the only thing that mattered today, and seeing her surrounded by loved ones, basking in the joy of the moment, filled him with a deep sense of fulfillment. However, as the party progressed, John began to notice subtle but unsettling signs. Sarah seemed to be unusually attentive to the man by the refreshment table. Their interactions were brief and discreet, but John's instincts told him something was off. He saw them exchange glances and caught snippets of their hushed conversations. A knot of unease started to form in his stomach, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the festivities and reminding himself that today was about Emma. The nagging feeling of suspicion, however, was hard to ignore, and it lingered in the back of his mind as the party continued. As the party went on, John couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was wrong. His attention kept drifting back to Sarah and the mysterious man, whose name he still didn't know. He watched as they shared furtive glances and seemed to gravitate towards each other in a way that was anything but casual. Sarah's demeanor around the man was different. There was an intimacy in her body language that John couldn't ignore. She would laugh a bit too freely, her hand lingering on the man's arm, longer than seemed appropriate for acquaintances. The knot in John's stomach tightened. He found himself hyper-aware of their interactions, each small gesture feeding his growing suspicion. He saw Sarah and the man step away from the main party area, whispering in a corner. The man's hand brushed Sarah's cheek, and she didn't pull away. John's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. Could it be that Sarah was having an affair? The thought was almost too painful to entertain. As the sun began to set, the party started winding down. The children were getting tired, and parents were beginning to gather their belongings and say their goodbyes. Emma was still full of energy, excitedly showing off her presents and talking about her favorite moments of the day. John watched her, his heart aching with the knowledge of the conversation that awaited him once the guests left. He helped with the cleanup, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. Sarah was also busy tidying up, her movements mechanical, and her eyes avoiding his. The weight of the unspoken words between them was almost unbearable, but John knew he had to stay strong for Emma. The facade they had maintained throughout the party was exhausting, but it had been necessary to keep the day. Sarah's sobs became more pronounced, and she covered her face with her hands. "I know, John. I'm so sorry. I was selfish and stupid. I don't expect a special for their daughter." Emma ran up to John, hugging him tightly. "Daddy, this was the best birthday ever. Thank you so much." John knelt down to her level, forcing a smile. "I'm glad you had fun, sweetheart. You deserve it." Emma beamed at him before running off to play with her new toys. John watched her go, feeling a pang of guilt. He hated the thought of her finding out about the betrayal, of her perfect day being marred by the reality of their family's situation. But he knew that protecting her meant dealing with the issues between him and Sarah. As the last guest left, John and Sarah stood in the now quiet backyard, the remnants of the party scattered around them. The cheerful decorations and leftover cake felt like a mockery of the happiness they had tried to create. John took a deep breath, knowing it was time to face the truth. "Sarah," he said quietly, his voice laced with both hurt and determination. "We need to talk, now." Sarah nodded, her expression resigned. "I know." They went inside, leaving the echoes of the party behind. Emma was in her room, playing with her toys, her laughter a distant sound that only heightened John's resolve to handle the situation with care. They needed to talk privately, away from Emma's innocent joy. In the kitchen, John and Sarah faced each other. The confrontation was inevitable, and the tension between them was palpable. John's heart pounded in his chest as he struggled to find the right words to express his feelings. "How could you, Sarah?" he began, his voice breaking. "How could you bring him here, to our daughter's birthday party?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "John, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." But you did, John said, his voice raw with emotion. You hurt me, and you put our daughter in the middle of it. How long has this been going on? For a few months, Sarah admitted, her voice trembling. It started as a mistake, and I didn't know how to stop it. John clenched his fists, trying to control his anger. A mistake? You invited him here, Sarah, to our home, to our daughter's birthday. How could you be so thoughtless? I was wrong, John, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. I see that now. I was selfish and stupid. I'm so sorry. John took a deep breath, his mind racing. The betrayal cut deep, but he knew he had to think of Emma. We need to figure out what happens next, he said quietly. For Emma's sake. Sarah nodded, wiping her tears away. I know. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. The conversation was far from over, but they both knew they had to take it one step at a time. For now, they needed to focus on Emma and ensure that she felt loved and secure. Despite the turmoil in their marriage, the road ahead was uncertain, but John was determined to navigate it with care and consideration for their daughter's well-being. Once the guests had left and the house was quiet, John and Sarah sat down at the kitchen table to have the conversation they had been dreading. The weight of what had happened hung heavily in the air, and John felt a mixture of anger, hurt, and betrayal. He looked at Sarah, searching for answers in her tear-streaked face. Sarah, I need to understand why, John said, his voice strained. Why did you do this? Why did you invite him to our daughter's birthday party? Sarah took a deep breath, her hands trembling. John, I know it was a terrible mistake. I never wanted to hurt you or Emma. I got caught up in something I couldn't control, and I didn't know how to get out of it. But inviting him here? John's voice rose with incredulity. To our home? To Emma's special day? How could you be so reckless? Sarah's tears flowed freely now. I thought I could handle it. I thought it wouldn't affect Emma, that I could keep it separate, but I was wrong. I see that now. John felt his anger boiling over. You didn't just make a mistake, Sarah. You betrayed our family. You betrayed me and our daughter. Sarah's sobs became more pronounced, and she covered her face with her hands. I know, John. I'm so sorry. I was selfish and stupid. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to try to make things right. John took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. We need to think about Emma. We need to decide what's best for her. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I know we need to put her first. Sarah nodded, her face pale and drawn. I agree. We need to figure out how to move forward, for Emma's sake. The conversation continued, with John and Sarah discussing their options. They talked about therapy, separation, and the possibility of trying to rebuild their marriage. The path ahead was unclear, but they both knew they had to find a way to coexist peacefully for Emma's sake. As the night wore on, John felt a mixture of exhaustion and determination. The betrayal had shaken him to his core, but he knew he had to stay strong for his daughter. He looked at Sarah, seeing the pain and regret in her eyes, and wondered if they could ever find a way to heal. We'll take it one day at a time, John said finally. For Emma. We owe it to her to try. Sarah nodded, her expression hopeful, but wary. Thank you, John. I know I've hurt you, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. The conversation ended with a sense of tentative resolution. John knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he was determined to face it with strength and resilience. For Emma's sake, he would do whatever it took to protect her happiness and well-being. In the days that followed the party, the atmosphere in the house was tense and strained. John and Sarah tried to navigate their new reality while maintaining a semblance of normalcy for Emma. They went through the motions of daily life, but the underlying tension was always present. John spent a lot of time reflecting on what had happened and what it meant for their family. He knew he had to make a decision about the future, one that would prioritize Emma's well-being, while also considering his own needs and happiness. He found himself replaying the events of the party in his mind, trying to understand how things had gone so wrong. The betrayal cut deep, and he struggled with feelings of anger, hurt, and confusion. But amidst all of that, he also felt a strong sense of responsibility towards Emma. He knew that whatever decision he made, it had to be in her best interest. Sarah, on the other hand, was filled with guilt and regret. She tried to make amends, showing John through her actions that she was committed to repairing the damage she had caused. She suggested therapy, both for herself and for their marriage, in the hopes of rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. John agreed to give therapy a try, seeing it as a potential path to healing. They attended sessions together, delving into the issues that had led to the affair and trying to understand each other's perspectives. It was a difficult and emotional process, but John was willing to put in the effort for Emma's sake. Through therapy, John began to see the deeper issues that had been present in their marriage long before the affair. He realized that they had both contributed to the breakdown of their relationship, and that healing would require honesty, forgiveness, and a willingness to change. As the weeks went by, John started to feel a glimmer of hope. He saw changes in Sarah, in her commitment to their family, and her willingness to face her mistakes. He also saw changes in himself, in his ability to forgive and to focus on what truly mattered: Emma's happiness and well-being. In the end, John and Sarah made the decision to stay together and work on their marriage. It wasn't an easy choice, but they both felt that it was the best option for their family. They continued with therapy, learning to communicate better and to address the issues that had led to the affair. They also made a conscious effort to prioritize their relationship and to spend quality time together as a family. They took Emma on outings, created new traditions, and focused on building a stronger, more supportive environment for her. John knew that the road to healing would be long and challenging, but he was committed to making it work. He saw the changes in Sarah, in her dedication to their family, and her willingness to make amends. And he saw the impact on Emma, in her laughter and her sense of security. Through it all, John learned valuable lessons about trust, forgiveness, and the importance of putting family first. He realized that while betrayal had shaken their foundation, it had also given them the opportunity to rebuild stronger and more resilient.